speaking of which, how about another introduction to Mr. Dave Zerkel?
I haven't changed since this morning. I just have a salad in me. That's the only thing that's different. All right. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're going to play?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm a rising junior tuba performance major at Appalachian State University, and I'm going to play Blasphich 9, which is a tuba etude.
Perfect. Have at it.
Give me 1 second, Nick.
Yeah, you bet. Is that normally part of the thing, or is that just because of the cast?
It's just because of the
Okay.
cast. But it always takes a minute. Sorry.
Every time I see, there are a lot of people who are taking to playing the tuba standing up these days. And every time I see a picture of someone playing a tuba standing up, I say, somebody get them a chair.
You don't like standing tuba?
It's too much work.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
It's hard enough already.
That's true. Can I play a couple numbers?
Oh, please do. Okay, fire away. piece of music to look at, the way that I tend to look at, how many of you know the TV Chopped, it's a cooking show. So here's the premise of Chopped. It's a cooking show. And they put up 4 really alpha human beings who all say, oh, I'm gonna kick your ass. And it's like really competitive and really weird in an alpha kind of way. But the thing with the premise of Chops is you get a basket of weird ingredients. And you have to make something delicious out of it. And you're graded on what the food tastes like, how the food is presented, what kind of craftsmanship you showed while you were putting the dish together, and then there's something else. Presentation, appearance, is something I might have repeated myself. So anyway, you're given this ridiculous basket of ingredients. So chefs, you've been given a basket with Laffy Taffy, green onions, liver, and Hershey Kisses. And then they've got to make a dish out of that, out of something that's really inconceivable. So I tend to look at every new piece of music that I'm looking at like it's a basket from Chopped, okay? And so what I think about when I look at the basket is I need to make something delicious out of this, and I need to discover what the ingredients are and how I can make something that's going to be appealing. How the food tastes is how you sound. The presentation is the story that you tell. Your technique is what you did in order to make the music happen well, like the technique on the instrument. And so I think within every piece of music that we encounter, and I'm a big etudes guy in my lessons. I'm a big fan of etudes because the main reason I love teaching etudes is this, is you force your students into making a new set of musical decisions every week. So if you work on the same concerto for 8 weeks in a row, you're not really learning anything. You're not learning how to be a better reader, that's for sure. And you're not learning how to problem solve so much in the studio. So I'm a big fan of doing etudes. So, what's the song about? It says Dolce at the beginning. Is it a love song?
I think so.
Okay, what kind of love song?
Kind of a
is it?
melancholy love song.
Yeah, it's not working out.
Yeah, it's not very nice.
It's not me, it's you. Yeah, so I agree. So this is kind of a sad song, but it says Dolce at the top, and then Blazevich gives you all kinds of instructions, most of which you followed really well. The con motos, you had nice motion, Menomoso nice. So I think you generally made good decisions as you went. What I would like you to work on a little bit is selling the idea of what this is. So let's use a generic word for what this melody is like at the beginning. Sad. We can start with simple adjectives. And I'll often say to my students, what's the adjective? And if it takes them longer than a 3-second violation in basketball, it's like, if you don't know what you want to say, how are they going to know what you want to say? Mm-hmm. So let's pick another word for sad, a different flavor of word.
I like melancholy.
I like melancholy too. Okay. So my thing is, the bigger your vocabulary is as a human being, the more English words you know to describe sad, the more vocabulary you have as a speaker, the more vocabulary you're going to have as a musician. So read books. Okay? That's good for you. Don't fight it. Okay, so give me melancholy. Let's from the top to the convolution.
Sorry.
And blow up the bell. So I'm going to give you a different version of that, and so where I'm going to to try and sell the idea that I'm selling something that's sad is kind of in my sound, in the sound that I'm going to make. Okay, so. Different than yours?
Yes.
How so?
It was a little bit quieter and high bass and vibrato.
Yeah, good. Okay, you play it again for me, and what I want you to try and do is I want you to, we've already told the password, it's sad. We've already told them that, okay? So, but what I want you to do is I want you to sell that to them, big time. I always say being a musician is like being a salesman. And I ask the student, what's the job of a salesman? And they'll look at me and say, to sell stuff? And I say, yes, but it's more specific than that. It's to sell them something that they don't want or need. That is the job of a salesman, is to sell something you don't want or need. That's how commercial TV works. You know, the things that you see on the commercials on TV, you're probably not in the market, but if they pound you in the head long enough, you'll say, yeah, I do need that, okay? So I want you to sell them that this is sad, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more expressive. Blow through. Everything is resonant, okay? There's a reason why people can go to the ocean and sit on the beach all day. Because the tide comes in, the tide goes out. There's this, there's this, there's this. I think you could show a little bit more build and release of tension in your phrases. So, and I know you're worried about your air. Do more swell than you think is appropriate. Okay? Huh? I play in a way that you think is showing the creation of tension and the release of tension. So the idea of being a little less thrifty with your air, I think is probably a pretty good idea. Okay, now I know I've got limited time, but there's one thing I want to talk to you about, and that's this. You don't always, sometimes as you play, your notes, you tend to change character with it. So I hear, it's almost like you're trying to control too much of what's going on here. So I would encourage you to think about the idea that we have a default exhale when we play any brass instrument. Any brass instrument, this all applies. A default exhale. If somebody says, Zerkel, what are your ideas about breath control? my 4 words are blow until you stop. Okay, once you initiate making a sound on the instrument, keep the air going until A, you're out of air, or B, the music says, okay, it's time to come up for a breath. So the exercise, and we're gonna do the Reader's Digest version of this, but I'm gonna encourage you to do this at home. You can do this, all of you can do this exercise, and you can do it 48 different ways and 48 different days, because we're just gonna do a scale. So let's do a relative major, that's F major. We're gonna go fast through this, I promise. You're watching the time. So at this tempo, I want you to play the first 5 notes of an F scale, each note getting 8 counts. Okay, so blow out the end of the bell, so it's gonna be this. And then up. Okay, here we go. 2, ready. Blow through. Feels closed. Blow through, blow it open. Breathe. Blow out the bell. Oh, see, that makes a huge, that opens you up. 2, ready, go. Okay, because we're pressed for time, I'm gonna stop you there, but those notes got better. When I said blow out the bell, you went, oh, okay, and the sound went, whoa. So it was great. Okay, now, I want you to go to full notes, so I want you to go. Okay, still out for 8, but blowing slower and 2 whole notes together. 2, ready, go. Keep the sound up, breathe. Blow out the bell. That sound is so much better. Breathe. Breathe. Okay, good. Ideally, we wouldn't take that last breath. Now 4 half notes. And up the scale. 2, ready, go. Blow. Breathe. Back down to the bottom. 8, and we do all the scales the whole time. 8 quarter notes up, 8 quarter notes down. Breathe and come back down. Good, the sound is getting better all the time. 8 notes up and down in one breath. Bravo! 16th notes twice. That's right again. Okay, thank you, thank you. Now your sound did improve. The punchline of this exercise for all of you, and you can do this scale, you can do major scales until you're out of them, and then you can do natural minor scales until you're out of them, and then harmonic minor scales until you're out of them, and then melodic minors. You can do this exercise every day. You're only doing a 1 octave or 2 octave scale, 1 octave scale, 1 octave scale, so it shouldn't be a mental stress for anybody. But the thing is, the punchline of this exercise is whether you're playing 1 note for 8 counts or you're playing 32 notes over 8 counts, the air that you're going to use through the instrument is exactly the same. And so what I want you to think about getting to is a point where you feel like you have a default exhale. When it's time to play the instrument, you're just saying, how am I going to blow this time? Well, I know, I'm going to blow the way that I blow every single time that I pick up the instrument. And if you can trust that, it simplifies your playing, and you don't have to think about convincing these morons who are your lungs into doing something that you want them to do. Rather, your brilliant brain says, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to keep my hair as easy as possible. So the one spot where it shows up the most for you, and we'll be done after this, is at the ends of phrases. You have a quote-unquote involuntary sound, okay? So I want you to just, and doing this exercise of blowing it out for 8 gets you working on your pacing, you know? And so that'll help. All right, great. I wish we had more time. And keep playing positive changes, because they're good for you. Sorry, I have something back. Bubble Barnes, great. Yeah, we probably won't make it through the whole thing. How about if we make it a goal to make it 1:45?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
Introduce yourself and let them know what.
I'm Stephen Jones. I go to Boise State University in Idaho, the Potato State. Yeah, so you're welcome for the fries. Anyways, but I'm going into my 4th year of music education at Boise State. And today I'll be playing the Concerto for Tuba by James Barnes. And yeah, movement 1, I guess.
Did you know that James Barnes, in addition to being a composer, is a tuba player?
I think I did.
He writes.
Yes.
He typically writes pretty delicious tuba parts in his band music. So. Feel free to play another tune if you like. Wait, why don't you go ahead to 1 and 2? All right, good. We're gonna stop here. So good. It's really nice. What is what's your adjective for the beginning of this?
I mean, it's written for me, but jolly, like really joyful, and really like kind of like a giant skipping through the forest, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and that's fine. Humor me. I just want you to play, if you don't mind. Let's just see how far we can do this. I've got this big thing, and this is, you know, my thing is, you don't know how far you can go until you've gone too far. That applies to falling in love with someone you shouldn't have fallen in love with. That applies to, I can only drink that many beers in one evening. That applies to, I shouldn't have eaten the whole thing. You know, you only know where your limit is once you've tiptoed over the edge and you go, oh my God, that was a horrible decision. So what I want you to do at the beginning, and then we'll just play from the beginning to the beginning of measure 30, is I just want you to flirt with how jolly you can make this. You just do that for me? Be super outgoing, okay? Yeah, great. So one of the things I'm sorry your generation will not know is what Arnold Jacobs' speaking voice sounded like. And he had this mellifluous baritone voice, and you could tell from the way that he spoke how he was going to play the tuba. Now, one of the things that Jim did very frequently is he used more vibrato than most people choose to use these days. So what about the idea of what about doing some vibrato on the F sharp to kind of say, hey, we're having fun. A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer in your pants. Okay? Here we go. One, Bravo. Now I like that. I think the character's good. Now let's talk about the other elephant in the room with this. Is that your articulation and your fingers are not always lining up. So can we do just that lick? Huh? Yeah. Now remember what we talked about with black notes? They are what? Melodic. Yes, indeed. Good. Can I ask you to enunciate incredibly well? Okay, so. Yeah, I love that. Practice slow. Don't think it's a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence. So practice slowly, you know. And so what we did here is he went from what he could do to what he couldn't do earlier, but we put our feet on all of the steps of the ladder in order to get to that point. It's what slays me about kids these days, about high school kids sometimes who will walk into my studio for an audition with the Cosmic Concerto, and I'm like, no, get that out of here because you're not ready to play this piece. So the idea of putting your foot on every step of the ladder as you development is important. I think sometimes we brass players tend to veer towards the jock side of the instrument before they're ready to do that. You know, so I really appreciate that articulation. And enunciating well for a tuba player is a really important thing. Tuba players, for the rest of you in the room, are told their entire lives, tubas, you're late, tubas, you're late, tubas, you're late, tubas, you're late. I don't think it's because we're late. And I don't think it's because we're dumb, and I don't think it's because we drag. Where I think the tuba has a problem is with enunciation. Okay, we've got a couple things working against us. We're low in the register of music, okay? Our bell is pointed the wrong way. We're far away from the director. We have things working against us. But I would not say that typically we're late, but I think where we can show that we're on time is our diction, what we play. When I studied with Mr. Federley, Sam's teacher, his big thing was he was on me about my diction. And so he made me play, honest to God, I was already playing in the field band at the time when I was taking these lessons. He said, for the next month, I want you to play everything like this. And I said, all right, I'll do that. I think it sounds a little goofy, but I'll do it. But I'll be damned if after that month of playing that way and playing my band parts with that kind of front, if I didn't solve my problem. I got rid of the decay, and then I just kept that front. And then nobody ever told me I was late again, you know? So focusing on the front of your notes for a tuba player is really important. Just making sure the diction is there. All right, now, good. Now can we go on to the... Okay, can we go there? And I know it says espressivo. I find your mezzo forte to be not quite present enough. Okay? Play so people can understand what you're doing. That's okay. Stop for a second. Well, the reason I'm stopping is because sometimes in individual notes you have a flaw, right? If you drink from the cup of blow until you stop, it is impossible to flaw because you're doing this. And you can't have a note that has a little miniature grease fire on it if you're just going. So can I ask you to not, here, just do this once. Eight counts of B, 8 counts of A flat. 1, 2, ready, go. Blow through. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, A flat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I love that. I love that. Now, okay, just blow straight through it. Okay, now good. Now the first one you flawed on, and then you caught yourself, and you didn't do it anymore, and it was great. But here's the thing that I noticed the most, is that you just sound better when you blow through the horn that way. It just sounds better. And I said this to someone earlier this morning, but when I get on this tangent with my students, sometimes they'll get done playing something, they'll just put down their horn, and they'll go, God, that's so much easier. It's so much easier than thinking about managing your wind. Don't manage your wind, get rid of it. As Sam Palafian would say, air is free, waste it, you know? All right, so great, let's do that one more time. We're gonna go on this time, but I want you to keep that idea of having that sort of presence. Read music. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and za, 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 za. Yes. Okay, notwithstanding the messy things 75% of the way through it. I can't read music either. I got it all over you. Sorry. Yeah, but that sounds a million times better than the first time you played it. One of my favorite quotes in music is so simple, but it's so profound if you stop to think about it. It comes from our friend Duke Ellington. Duke's quote, "If it sounds good, it is good." Very simple, very profound at the same time. So if you ever decide to play something on your instrument that doesn't sound good, guess what? It's not good. Okay, and so what we want to use is we want to use our barometer of our default sound that we make on the instrument, what we're going to use. I'm not here, I'm going to say this in a room of brass players, and I'm ready for the arrows to come flying. I'm not a routine guy. Come at me, bro. So I'm not a routine guy because you know what? I mentioned this earlier. I have very little interest in going into a room and playing cool exercises. I want to play music. And so what I use for my warm-up stuff, I'm going to evangelize for Brad Edwards here for a minute, but I'm a big fan of Brad Edwards, who teaches trombone at Arizona State. He has 3 books that I use religiously in my studio. One is a very simple book called Simply Singing for Winds. And what it is it's simple 16-bar melodies, some that are like original folk tunes or things like that. But what it does is it allows you to start your playing day just playing melodies. Because we don't do that, okay? We don't do that. The other book is Lip Slur Melodies, and it is appealing melodies, and that book is freaking hard. By the time you get halfway through it, it's like, oh, I can't play this. But it's not lip slurs like... It's like tasty melodies that you're doing lip slur exercises. I always joke it's like giving your dog a pill in a piece of Velveeta. You're getting something that's good for you, but they say treats. Okay? And then the last book that I use, which has replaced, I know I'm ready, has replaced my Urban's book. I know! is Patterns and Snippets. Okay? And what it does is it scale patterns and arpeggios and things like that. But unlike Arbenz, it takes you through all 12 keys for everything. You have to infer a lot of things because he'll give you the skeleton of what the exercise is after a while, and then you have to kind of figure it out from that. I start every one of my lessons alternating patterns and snippets with my kids. And you know what? They know their scales, they know their arpeggios, and they have to, and I also get a chance to model with them for the first 5 minutes of a lesson. So those are the 3. I'm not getting any money from Brad Edwards, but I swear on a stack of Bibles that his materials are so good for any students playing. And I play out of those books daily. All right, I think you're doing pretty well. I think the most important thing for you, though, is you didn't give me your best sound at the beginning. Everybody has within them an ability to make a better sound than they're making. So don't settle. Don't settle on a sound that isn't full, that isn't beautiful, that isn't resonant. Go digging, look for more, see how much resonance you can create. And I think you'll go, oh gosh, that sounds a lot better than it did before. All right, right here you play. Now, I didn't really think he was going to hit me. Not at all. Never once did I think that was going to
We got a question over there.
Yeah.
Hey, what was the second book you mentioned?
Lip slur melodies. Yeah, it's hard. By the time you get to that back of that book, it's like, oh man. But it's a great book.
Those books are
That one has
applicable for
duets as well, right?
What's that?
The lip slur melodies, does that one have the duets in it?
Yeah, it also has lip slur duets in the back. If you totally want to nerd out. Yeah. All right, great. Let everybody know who you are and what you're going to play.
I'm Will. I'm a first-year music education major at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm playing the 23rd Etude from the Gregoria book.
Great. Feel free to play notes. And if you find yourself, if you're regularly doing that, then work out a breathing strategy to make it happen. Okay? So here's, yeah, nobody cares if you took a breath, but what they do notice is that something went bad. Okay? So I would say that. For the most part, you did pretty well. I noticed at the beginning you had a little issue with connections. This got better as it went through a little bit. The way that I think about connecting notes, and I'll use for the tuba, I'll use a very famous band excerpt that we have to play many times, which is the whole first suite, the opening to the first suite. When I play that, I'm thinking about, well, I was working on this with Charles earlier. When I think of playing that, the problem the thing that all the tuba players worry about is ghosting notes or notes not speaking. So rather than thinking about what the front of the next note looks like, what I think about is what my exit from the previous note looks like. So as I'm playing that, if I think about fronts only, sometimes I might get something that would be like this. But if I think about, I always think of the metaphor of I forget which year it was. There was a year that the United States 4x100 relay team, the men's relay team, was just supposed to wipe up the field because we had the fastest humans on the face of the earth running in our race. Well, guess what? They messed up the exchange for the baton in the first leg of the race. So who cares if they're the fastest humans in the world? Because their race was over once they dropped the baton. Okay? And so if I'm thinking about the connection, perfect! So I'm thinking about that, thinking of the back connecting to the front of the next one. For me, that helps to shore things up a little bit. We just play the first 8 measures or so. That's fine. Good. So use that in order to make things have a little bit more sweet to it. All right, good. So here, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Do you like this etude?
Yes.
Okay, good. What I would say, I could use a little bit more of you telling us that you like it. You know,
Okay.
I remember in undergrad when I would have go into a lesson with my teacher, and if I had a bad week, whether it was a busy week playing in ensembles, or a bad week with a girlfriend, or a bad week with a grade in another class, and I'd say, you know, I really didn't put in as much time this week as I wish I would have. And he'd say, oh, you never should have told me that. And so he'd be extra hard on me, you know, for admitting weakness. What a guy. So anyway, but my thing is this, it was the same thing if I said to him, I really didn't like the etude this week. He'd say, oh, you shouldn't have told me that either. Now you have to really sell it. I have to believe that you love this etude. So can I just play a little for you?
Yeah.
Okay. paragraph of this story?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in order to have a successful paragraph, we're going back to something we talked about this morning. In order for you to have a successful paragraph, your sentences have to be engaging. And they have to string together to complete an idea. Okay? So what I was hearing before was, I like brown cows because they make chocolate milk. Chocolate milk comes from brown cows. I went to this farm once and they had brown cows that made chocolate milk. You know, and so it kind of felt like same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Okay. Yes, it felt like the same little two-bar phrase reiterated without an idea of moving the story forward, or without the idea of moving the idea forward. Now let's go to the new paragraph. Okay, this is new material, right? Would you say this is less agitated or more agitated than the stuff that preceded it?
I think more agitated.
Yeah. I think the minor key gives a clue there. Next break. So can I ask you, I realize that's going to happen a little, but can I ask you to think of keeping it a little bit lower and using your air speed rather than this position, this E sound, to make that happen? Okay, thanks. Many times in music we have directors telling us subdivide, 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 subdivide. Sometimes I think when you're trying to make good music, I think macroing the beat makes a lot of sense. So rather than going 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, and 2, da, dee, da, dee, da, da. If we're going to get really silly, there's a great video that's a TED Talk. I'd ask you to look it up. It's called Music with Bright Shining Eyes, and it's by Ben Zander, who's a conductor. And he does this great talk about how a beginning piano student emphasizes every note. A year later, they emphasize every other note. A year later, they emphasize every 4 notes, and then they stop getting better. Okay, but he talks about the idea of trying to do things in this kind of suite, and I think that would help you sound less notey and more sentency, less syllabic and more sentency as you play. All right, I think you have a lot of good things going on. I would encourage you to sometimes when your sound is very active, it stops being beautiful sometimes. So strive for that idea of always having beauty as being your guidepost for what your sound is like. All right, yeah?
Thank you.
All right, good. Nice to hear you play.